Thanks, everyone. Welcome to our final concurrent session of the day. This will run from 3:30 to 4:30. This presentation, we got two sessions: designing an innovative strategy to enhance digital literacy in undergraduate nursing students, Deanne Smith and Sandra McDonald, and we have Can Plagiarism Be Unintentional? Carolyn Best and Nadine Adams. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm Bill Shalev. I work with CITL, for those who haven't been in the room yet. And yes, we will begin. If anyone is on WebEx, if you could please turn off your microphones until the Q&A. These presentations are 30 minutes, 20-ish for talking, and about 10 for Q&A. And yeah, thank you very much. So I'll let you folks begin. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Beautiful sunshiny day, 3:30 in the afternoon. We're greatly appreciative that you're still here. My name is Deanne Smith, and I am a faculty with the Memorial University Faculty of Nursing, and I also do some work with the Center for Nursing Studies. Sandra and I was the associate dean at Memorial when I started working there, and we were at the International Congress of Nursing Conference in Montreal 2 years ago when we started talking about this project. I had started pursuing my PhD in a aligning area of study, and we started talking at the conference. We had attended some sessions about digital literacy, and we became inspired to learn a little bit more about our own students in particular. So I'll let Sandra introduce herself.
Sandra McDonald. Well, I'm retired now. I've come to my senses about a year officially. But Deanne and I started this before I retired, so we're still finishing it up. And yeah, as Deanne said, we were inspired by a conference, and then we kind of just kept digging and discovered that, it's a lot of interesting things about what is digital literacy and how our nursing students need to have competencies and what that means for nursing. So that's where we're going to go today.
Absolutely.
We were actually funded by the Teaching and Learning Innovation Fund. We had to get a little bit of funding to hire some graduate students to help us with the project. And so we really appreciate that, and also then the support from faculty of nursing. Of course, they were very supportive too.
They have been very supportive. With the help of our teaching graduate students and teaching assistants, we were able to conduct an environmental scan and scoping literature review of current approaches to teaching digital literacy in undergraduate nursing programs across Canada, and explore the teaching and learning needs of students related to the electronic health record specifically. That's the tool we've looked at most specifically. And we've been able and very fortunate to consult with faculty and our nursing students on innovative approaches to teaching digital literacy with respect to the electronic health record. And we've used that information to collect and inspire the design of innovative learner-centric strategies to enhance students' competency and their ability to integrate with and interact with the electronic health record in clinical practice. Digital health itself has produced tools that provide clinical and communicate timely information to better coordinate healthcare at both individual and population levels. Advancements over the years, from stethoscopes, eyeglasses, X-ray machines, antibiotics, vaccines, point-of-care diagnostics, imaging technologies have demonstrated the ability to save lives and improve quality of care. Emerging technologies include wearable devices, computerized decision support systems, telemedicine, electronic health records, and social media platforms have provided solutions that facilitate the exchange of health information. The World Health Organization has outlined the potential benefits of digital health, including increased access to healthcare, improved quality and safety of healthcare, and increased efficiency of healthcare delivery, which we're seeing as challenges in everyday living and everyday healthcare issues today. The World Health Organization has also developed a global strategy on digital health from 2020 to 2025, guiding these developments, which are changing the healthcare sector globally every day. And this effort to provide transfer of knowledge and understanding of various aspects of the emerging field of science and better facilitates transfer of knowledge into practice for our students every day. Nursing informatics, breaking it down a little more, is the science of practice that integrates nursing, its information and knowledge into the management and information and communication technology to promote the health of people, families, and communities worldwide. The Canadian Nurses Association states that digital health is fundamentally patient-centered and suggests that patient-centered care integrating digital health methods can improve health, transform quality, and reduce health system costs. Successful achievement of person-centered models of health and wellness indicates the integration of nursing informatics and all practice environments are vital. Nursing informatics competencies are essential for nursing in all roles to function in complex contemporary healthcare settings. Research has explored the preparedness of nurses to practice nursing informatics in practice and found that age, years of experience, education level, and their relationship with their perception of nursing informatics among nurses can persuade them to either use it or not. From these findings, researchers suggest needed support in the development of core nursing informatics competencies in current and future nurses, and literature examining approaches to define and assess nursing informatics competencies for nurses and nursing students. Nursing informatics has transformed from a specialization to a specialization in nursing informaticians. There's an actual specialty now that we have nursing informaticians. But we do have some core competencies that the Canadian Association of Nursing Schools developed in 2011. So they're old, but they're currently undergoing some progress. And they state that students must meet and possess and demonstrate the knowledge and skills required at completion of their nursing program in preparation for their entry into professional nursing practice. This explains that, further explains, can you just go back? Yeah. That they must integrate information and communication technologies that support nursing practice and the delivery of patient-centered care, and be able to use digital health technologies for appropriate documentation of clinical care and nursing practice, integrating electronic patient data and information, accessing, collecting, retrieving, and analyzing into clinical decision-making and nursing practice. So what that means for us here in Newfoundland and Labrador is that the overarching competency for our nursing students means that they need to have competency in communication technologies to support information synthesis in accordance with their professional and regulatory standards in the delivery of patient client care. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have what's called Meditech, an electronic health record that's been around for a very, very, very long time. April 2026 should see the launch of a new electronic health record here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're hoping to be able to, using some of the information that we have gained from this research, to be able to inspire further adoption of the electronic health record and better integration into nursing education to sustain our students' success with being able to integrate it into nursing practice. The electronic health record has been around for a really long time. It's been around since like 1990. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we used it more as a work management system than as a documentation system. In the last 15 years, it has evolved as an electronic documentation system, but we still see in some areas inconsistencies where paper and pen are still used, inconsistencies where we have 5 separate electronic health records used across the island alone. So we need to have more substantial learning and for our students as we progress them through school in order to be able to meet the competencies to be competent when they go into practice. Mel Cleve, a leading researcher in the nursing informatics in the University of Alberta, details in her research that teaching students about electronic health records presents challenges for most nursing programs, primarily because of the limited training opportunities with clinical practice settings. As a clinical instructor, I echo these challenges. Bringing students into the clinical environment where you're tasked with facilitating compassionate care, you're tasked with facilitating the skills of everyday patient care, and teaching students to learn how to document that in an age-old system is very challenging. Being able to successfully implement the electronic health record into our curriculum and into our theoretical process, in our simulations and into our laboratory settings would be a successful way to facilitate further learning and adoption by our future nursing students. And Sandra is going to detail how we've explored that a little bit more successfully.
So as Deanne mentioned, when we think of digital literacy, that's really what we get in high school, secondary school. We learn how to use a computer, but it becomes much more integral when you're thinking about what you need for working with this particular Meditech system of electronic health records. Some of the lessons we learned as we went through, and just again from our graduate students who did our scoping review and looked across environmental scan, it is called informatics competencies. Like, it's clearly outlined in nursing that that's the competencies that they're looking for. And there's also a lot of innovative approaches that are in the literature for how we could accomplish this. Right now, what our students, they do what they call a Learn module, which is an online web-based module through Eastern Health that they all have to do before they actually practice in the setting. And then it's really up to faculty or the staff nurses to kind of pick up there. And so as we started to learn a little bit more about, this is the system that we use, or sort of the definition, it's called Meditech, and as Deanne mentioned, that will be changing over the coming year to an EPIC, I believe is the name of it. Mm-hmm. So although the system will change, the functions will stay the same. And when we look at the expectations of what we expect our students to be able to do in each of the years, second year is sort of a beginning level, all documentation. They don't actually take off physicians or they don't transcribe physicians' orders in their second year, but in third year, they would be doing that. And in fourth year, of course, by the time they're ready to graduate, they should be competent in all of these functions. That's not really what's happening. I think I can safely say that because it is a very complex process. And I don't think we really got a grasp on how to really teach it well. So one of the phases of this project was really the end product is to design some strategies that will be innovative or that we could enhance the learning that's happening now. So not certainly to take away from the excellent Learn modules that Eastern Health or Health now has in place. So we designed a very simple questionnaire based on banners are very familiar in nursing with the stages of experience or competence in nursing, and used Likert scales that went this way, 1 to 5 with no experience. So we up to proficient. Now we would not really expect our nursing students before graduation to be proficient. Sometimes they are, which is great, but we certainly expect them to be competent. The other challenge we had was that the Meditech user manual, or the main thing in which they access, is like 2016. As Deanne said, it hasn't been updated since then. One of the challenges too is when students are on the units, they do have their clinical instructors there, but where do they go if they need help with how to use Meditech? 2016 manual that they have to dig into the intranet to try and find, like, it's not an easy accessible resource for them. So we kind of, as we started to think about it, we were like, well, what do we do to help them? Like, after they do that module, like, how can we really help them master this and come to the level that they need without really putting that pressure on the staff nurse to teach those nurses? Like, that's another concern. You can't send them out there without the skills or the competencies and expect the staff nurses in this busy world to pick that up for us. So as educators, we feel a strong responsibility to make sure they're ready. So the user manual, that we also use that to design the questionnaire. What are some of the basic functions? It certainly wasn't all inclusive, but we sort of hit the tops of the trees as best we could. And again, using the Likert scales. And we asked the students how they perceive their competency. And also we were very interested in the teaching strategies that they would like to see. And we also asked faculty what they thought the competency of the year the students were in each year, and what kind of strategies they would use or see us bring in new. Love the Qualtrics. It's a great platform for doing surveys. So we sent out an email We didn't include our first year students in this round because they really don't do a lot with the Meditech, but since then, we're kind of thinking maybe we should have, because they do some of the basic documentation in first year. So if it was to be repeated, we would do it again. The other thing we learned is that there's a lot of tools out there. And, you know, for one, this competency assessment scale, that could probably be a really good project unto itself to find out what is their current competency. So we did send out an email and had a couple of reminders and, you know, we didn't give them prizes or anything, but we tried to encourage their participation. And it was a busy time of the year when we were a little bit delayed in actually sending out the survey. But when we finally got it out, it was the middle of the semester. Students were very busy. We got a very small response rate. So we can't take any of this as, I'm going to show you now what we got from these surveys. But we can't take any of this as certainly generalizable or reflection of the whole curriculum. You know, this is just a very small group. I kind of look at it as almost like a little focus group to help orient us to what might be important. We did have 21 responses from students, and luckily it kind of spanned across the years. So we had students from second year, third year, these are clinical courses. We asked them what clinical courses they were currently, or their last clinical course they were registered in. So we did get a little smattering across the years, only 2 in fourth year, but their input was really valuable. So it's the quality, not the quantity at this point we were looking at, but we're a little bit disappointed, but yet we were happy because we got a lot of good information. All of them had completed the learning modules, which in itself is a good, nice to know that they are mandatory, they are all completing them. So this project is to build on those learning modules, certainly not to replace them or criticize them in any way, because they are doing, as you'll see from these small group, they're doing a great job. So we asked them to rate their competency, and the top ratings, as you can see, the level of competency in the Likert scale that we use, we would only expect in second year for most of these, if not all of them, to be at a beginner, maybe an advanced beginner level. This is the student's self-perception. Of course, that's another limitation of a self-perception scale. So documentation is really good. Like we found from all the years that they're documenting well. They perceive themselves as competent in documenting interventions, which is great because, you know, they're really just starting. Then we see the values start to drop, the means start to drop, and entering patients' notes. So this is all around documentation and accessing the information. So this is good. You know, this shows that they're at that level that we would expect to be between beginner, advanced beginner. Then this is the area that we were sort of highlighted where we probably need to focus our resources. So, you know, in the beginning, we were thinking, oh, we got to have a Brightspace site with everything on there, all the content, which is overwhelming. But I'm really glad we did these surveys because it really helped us see, you know, bring it down to a couple of key points that people are having either not experience with or difficulty with. So the red bars you can see there are, again, very small numbers. So take this, you know, with a grain of salt, as we say. No experience, like no experience. So they're in the second year. Now remember, they're in the middle of the semester. So this could change as they had gone through the semester, that being considered too. But the majority of the students had no experience with some of these very critical functions within the Meditech system. In particular, plan of care, like you'll find that this plan of care, entering and editing the plan of care is something that we saw through all the years, even in graduation, and even talking to nurses who are graduated. These are things that sometimes track right into their first year of practice. So we got some, as you can see in second year, okay, some of the things that we would be concerned about. So if you're not getting any experience with any of these, obviously, by the time you go into third year and you're expected to be either at a beginner or advanced beginner, you're not going to be there because you never even had a chance to touch or do anything. And that's a common, I think Deanne could speak to that in the clinical area, how difficult it is when you have 14 patients and, you know, 8 students and you're trying to document care. So it's quite a challenge to have this, I guess, this process sort of come into the clinical area and then the responsibility lie there for trying to teach them. Third years, again, documentation really good. So again, we're seeing like they're perceiving themselves as competent, that's where we want to be. Competent. But things again start to sort of go down, we'll say. And so when we look at the third years and look at where they're not getting this small group again, where they weren't getting any experience, plan of care, comes up again. Documenting allergies, again. And enter orders and entering order sets. Now, this is important in third year because this is where they are learning to take off and transcribe orders from physicians. In third year, they have what we call unverified orders. So they can go in there and do anything, but it won't go anywhere until a registered nurse actually allows it to go. So it's kind of like a checkpoint there. But again, if you don't have that experience, you're not going to be able to do it. And then, so at the end of third year, they're going into fourth year, they're going to be independent. They're going to be with preceptors. Right? They're, at that point, they would not have unverified orders, although some may still be in that capacity, but they're going to be expected to take off the orders themselves. So if you've gotten through your program, you're in third year, you still haven't had an experience with entering orders or entering order sets, it's going to be difficult in fourth year. You're going to try, you're playing catch up. So here we are in fourth year, and even in fourth year, again, we're seeing that trend that documentation is doing really well, which is great. Like that's super because 90% of what they do is the documentation in MTech. But then the values, the means start to come down. And here again, plan of care. Now, the reason why I guess we would be concerned about plan of care, because the plan of care is where the student or nurses would enter all the things that are done for the patients, right? So you have all your interventions in there. If you don't have all of your interventions in there, that is actually linked to systems that measures the workload. So if you don't have everything in or changed or up to date in that plan of care, you may actually be impacting what the workload, the status, and what it looks like from a management perspective on the floor.
Looks like you did nothing on it.
Yeah, like it's not either. And we always say in nursing, if it's not documented, it wasn't done. So, you know, trying to find where do you put this and so anyway, like again, it's only a small group, but this gave us some hints as to where we might want to focus our resources. So if we look at all 3 years, there was common, even though the small little group, there still were common things that came up for all of them. Entering and editing administrative data was important. Fall risk assessment, the plan of care, we saw that through most years, and documenting allergies. So in this, again, very small group, it really helped to prioritize where we would start with our resource development. So we want to start with these main pieces that we know are concerns. So we're not going to start with how do you document? They're documenting. We asked the faculty, same things in similar scale and questions. So we compare, and we did give faculty across all years. I won't spend too much time on faculty, but and again, it's not enough to do a statistical comparison, but faculty and students were pretty much on par in third and fourth years of where they thought their competency was. But it's really interesting that in second year, we see students thinking they're proficient in documenting interventions, but yet faculty who teach them are saying, no, you're maybe just an advanced beginner. And I think someone mentioned that in one of the presentations earlier about how students have a completely different perception of what they can and can't do. Okay, so that sort of came out, although they ranked them the same, you can, these are the top 4. So they're both the top 4 for the second year students and faculty, and they were ranked, but not the same level of competence. We also asked them about teaching strategies, the effectiveness of teaching strategies. And I thought, well, we thought, I guess we did, that it was really interesting that both the students and faculty identified these top 3 were their top 3, both students and faculty identified that. Peer-to-peer demonstration and simulation, and Deanne's working a lot with simulation, so we're looking at virtual simulation for case studies and so on. The reason why I put the blue PowerPoints with audio, because before we sent out the survey, we thought, okay, we're going to do, you know, the thing, you get the PowerPoints and you speak over it and you put things, you know, you do the audio. That's the last strategy that they want. So it really made us, like, it was so important to do this, even though it was a small sample, the needs assessment of the learners, like what is it they wanted and what were their needs? It changed the way we thought about the project. And also, I don't think we were thinking about peer-to-peer. So, we did put the list that we got from the literature as to what strategies would be, and this is what we came up with. So now we're focusing more on these ones that we know that both students and faculty like.
In practical application, peer-to-peer is where it's at, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
In the clinical setting, you will find them huddled around a computer saying, oh, I've done that before. Can I teach you how to do it? Or And really, it's the best way to learn. Some more guidance in there as well, but the peer-to-peer is definitely where it's at.
I'm gonna go real quick enough. We're out of time. I never even gave you any time for questions. So we're working on the site. We're working at the design, like we're looking at hotspot activities and those, these are really interesting case studies. One comment we got from students, I said, what would you really like to have? And I didn't put it up there, but they call it a cheat sheet. We'd like to have a cheat sheet. I said, well, what do you mean? Like, so 2 o'clock in the morning, a doctor writes an order. I can't remember how I'm gonna take off that order in Meditech. I want to be able to pull up on my phone, which we do let them bring their phones into the clinical area now, and say, here's my cheat sheet on how to take off an order. Instead of trying to find a registered nurse or my instructor who got 22 students, and then developing the videos that are, again, those key priority areas that came out. Students did the same thing. They want more hands-on. They still haven't had an opportunity to do things. Maybe there's a way that there's a lab, and we've talked about that too. Faculty comments, the same kind of thing. Like everybody's sort of saying the same thing. We want more hands-on, but we would like to have access on campus. So we're designing these resources for a Brightspace site that we started. The 2 points on the bottom, however, beyond the scope of this project. But it's going to be important to, really make sure that that gets disseminated, because the peer-to-peer has to be something that's going to be done in clinical areas. There's also in health science, the computer room is set up with the Meditech test system. Problem is there's no cases in there. So it's like, okay, we're ready, but we're not quite there. And then demonstration. Oops, did I turn that off? I should turn that off. So this was just the step-by-step idea we're running through. So this would be something, so 24/7 that will come up on the student's mobile phone. They go in, and I think if I press, so here's the first screen would come up and says, it shows them the screen, it takes them through the steps. Here's the second screen that would be linked to a certain step, and then the final screen that takes them through and how to do it. So that's the kind of thing we're thinking, that if we could have it on their mobile phone. Okay, drop the mic down.
Create an app.
Yeah, well, you don't even know all the references, and then it's time to go out and enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you so much. We don't have a ton of time, but if some folks have a few questions or comments or queries before we continue,
I'm asking one question. So I understand that like it's so hard to write a report of what you do. Like it never works. I was not in nursing. I was like working in my tech company, and you never write what you do, and you always like have that struggle. Is there any other like apart from it's actually good. I do design science research, so like the outcome of like what you did is like really interesting for me. But apart from that, is there any way to automate that type of, putting a camera in the room, like, I don't know, some AI explaining what they did, just like a template, and then they just feel what was like, I don't know, that specific tablet they got, like, but the structure is there. Have you ever thought about it? Is there any software like that?
There isn't specific software that we've integrated into our school at the current time. One of the strategies that we have listed in our strategies is a virtual simulation as they're doing lab work. So while they're in the actual practice lab where they learn how to become nurses and practice skills, to be able to document simultaneously. So to be able to do that work as they're doing it, and to also do it in the virtual simulation world, and document in real time with the events that are happening. But to find an actual software to integrate the documentation piece as we're going, it's tricky.
Should they do it in real life, like when they're in hospital?
Oh, yes.
So can you talk what they are doing, and then they, like auto generated?
No,
So they cannot.
this actually is really, I would say, an antiquated system. Like
This
good
came off
removing.
the arc with Noah.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
looks pretty old.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
it's
that
old.
is the same system that I used when I went through the
Yeah.
program and graduated in 2004.
Oh.
Meditech as a system has been around, like I said, as a work management system. So it was to gauge how many nurses you needed on a unit to do the work that was required. It was never used for documentation because we documented with pen and paper. So,
But
but
it
then
was
it
designed-
evolved and it grew. Its technology didn't enhance, but it just, the capacity to be able to document it in it was enhanced. It's not needed.
No, it's not intuitive at all.
A point of care system where at the bedside, similar to what you suggested, like a microphone or even a tablet at the bedside to be able to actually document at the bedside is hopefully where our new system will bring us. I'm just not, I haven't seen it.
Because if I was a nurse and I had to do that, probably I would record, like, I say it like in a way and they have like a draft and then you just like correct it if like it didn't catch your report, but it's tedious, like.
But that system too, we didn't go too deep into it, but that's connected to all the other systems in the hospital. So for example, if I'm sitting at the terminal and the order is to a lab value or to have a blood work done, I enter that and that is gone to the lab. And they know they have to come up and do it. So it's an integrated system into other systems, information systems in the
So it's
hospital.
sort of hard to use your own phone to
It's
enter.
Oh,
not
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, there's firewalls, we can't, that's one of the problems, we can't even get it at the school, like you can't get access to. the
Because of
system.
patient privacy.
we gotta stop now, I know.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask, has there been any forward thinking into getting the students ready to use Epic?
Where is?
No, because I actually did Epic training just before I came and moved down.
Yes.
And actually the Epic system is, I found it quite easy to use. I think the students who are even more technology savvy and technology comfortable will find it even more easier to use. And there's actually a lot of great training videos that come from the company themselves. Like,
I have done some work with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services regarding the launch of Epic. However, I'm not privy to what that looks like just yet.
well, maybe you and I can chat later.
Absolutely. I know who you are. I know where you live.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you so much. Thank you, and so we have our last and final presentation. I've been waiting all day for this because, as you know, I'm an instructional designer, and the question of whether plagiarism can be unintentional is asked of me about 3 times a week. So I'm looking forward to you guys enlightening us on this topic. So yes, thank you very much, Carolyn and Deanne. You guys can start.
Oh, just like, are you standing because like.
Where would you guys?
Where you understand, I'm not sitting, if I stay here, she stays there, or what is better?
Just remember Darcy moved the camera.
Yeah, like we ask him to hear what we have, so, well, you know what, I'll come over.
You guys can stand next to each other.
At the same time. No, yeah. That's good, that works. But ask you first.
Yeah, you are.
So you go first. Okay, so, all right, so welcome to the Writing Center's presentation, the end of the day. Today's topic originated discussion that Carolyn had with the department head on unintentional plagiarism, and we thought, wow, okay, I think we got to talk about this more with not just one department head, but everybody on the campus, for sure. So that's where this all came from. So to discuss unintentional plagiarism, we're going to talk about what it means. Then we'll move into some of the proactive measures we can take, some practical resources that you may or may not be doing, and hopefully we'll have a little discussion at the end. All right, so take this or you're okay? No, good. So, you know, the prevalence of plagiarism is well documented. I don't think we need to talk much more about that. And I'm sure that some of you in the room have probably experienced this in your classes or in your departments. You know, it's really detrimental for students when they plagiarize. It's a real headache for the instructors. And for us, for me and Nadine as instructors, you know, we've been faced with this ourselves. If we look at the MUN definition of plagiarism, you know, it seems quite simple to understand. It's similar to most definitions that you'll find. And we always see, I guess, plagiarism as a binary. You know, students have plagiarized, students have not plagiarized. So there's kind of 2 options there. And of course, looking at punitive measures, whether they have or not. So, but looking at it from an educational standpoint, this is actually a rather simplistic view
when we look at plagiarism. And when you dig into plagiarism a little bit more deeply, it does become a little bit murky, I guess, if we could use that word. So like I said, it is quite a simplistic view, and it doesn't really account for why students plagiarize. So if we look at unintentional plagiarism, it's as it sounds, it's plagiarism that was unintended. Sometimes in the literature, it's also called accidental. And so if we see here the APA quote for what is unintentional plagiarism, they say using incorrect citations, for example, misspelling an author's name, forgetting or mistyping an element in a reference list entry, or citing a source in the text that does not have corresponding reference list entry is not considered plagiarism. If the error is minor and attributable to an editorial oversight rather than in an intentional attempt to steal someone's ideas. I need new glasses, I really do. So, you know, you may agree with this, you may not agree with that, but we have to look at it. You know, there is plagiarism still. Depending on who you are, you might see that as plagiarism. So we have to think about, though, do these kinds of errors, we'll call them, do they carry the same weight as what we would see when we look at plagiarism? So then how do we deal with unintentional plagiarism? So like I said, we usually look at it with a binary approach. So on one end, we've got students breaching the academic expectations. On the other end, we have them being consistent with the academic expectations. And we can see here, you know, the students are being dishonest because they plagiarized. And on the other end, they're being honest because they're consistent. But if we look at it, these kind of definitions, we'll call them, describe the things that we can see and that we can't see about what students are showing in their writing. So then, you know, my question would be, you know, reaching academic expectations, is that always being dishonest? So I really like this quadrant here, or that's called the complexity quadrant from Smith and colleagues. And this is really interesting the way that they've done it. So they've taken the definitions that we had before. So we've got breach of academic expectations here and consistent with academic expectations there. And then we also have honest and dishonest. So now we've actually got kind of 4 different ways of looking at plagiarism. So if we look at the D students, for example, well, the C and D, they're both down here being dishonest, okay? The D student is being consistent with academic expectations. So maybe they bought their essay. Maybe they bought it somewhere. Maybe they had a student friend write it for them. We don't really know. Okay? Over here then, student C is also dishonest, but is also breaching academic expectations. Maybe they really don't care much about the class. They're just trying to get through it. And so they've copied a few things, maybe plagiarized a few things because it's due tonight and they don't really care anyway and they just want to get it done. Who knows, okay? The students all have different thoughts in their minds. And as we've heard in different sessions today, we're always going to have dishonest people, right? When I was going to school, people used to roll up a piece of paper and stick it in a pen and pass it to their friend. That was kind of how cheating was done then, and cheating has always been around. Now let's look at the honest student. So here we have student A. They're being consistent with academic expectations, but they're also being honest. So I guess the student has figured out what they need to do in their courses to do well. Maybe they've gotten some help from their instructor, maybe visited the writing center to figure out what they need to do to be consistent with what we expect. If we look here in this quadrant, student B, this student is honest, but they have breached academic expectations. And so, you know, they're not intentionally plagiarizing, they're trying their best, but they don't really know why they're not doing well. Okay, they could be failing the course, maybe getting zeros because they have plagiarized. So we have to figure out, you know, kind of what's going on here. Okay, they are being honest. Okay, they don't want to cheat and they're not trying to, but for some reason, they're still breaching these academic expectations. So I think it's always important to look at the students that we have coming into our institutions. This is just a list of some students that you might have in your class. But of course, first-year students, they're coming in from high school. They may not have had a whole lot of experience writing kind of academic papers, may never had to cite anything before. We also have mature students coming in who've been in the workforce for years and years. Maybe they had never been to university before they started in the workforce. We have international students who are coming in, and many international students speak English, just like native speakers, but they may never have written anything. Maybe it's the government language in their country, so they don't have experience writing in English. Of course, we also have English as an additional language students. They're coming in from different academic cultures than we have here. And then also students who are registered in different courses. So they have some expectations from their prof in this course, but there are different expectations in this course. Even if they're using the same style guide, we see very different things. We see all sorts of stuff in the writing
Edition
center.
changes. One wants this edition and the other one wants the other edition.
That's right, yeah. So it's very interesting to see. So these are the kinds of things that we have to think about when we're looking at students' work. Not that we're going to treat everyone differently that's in the class, but at least then we have a general idea of what kinds of students that we have in the class and what supports we may need to add in. So if we think of these as kind of our B quadrant students, they're the ones that, you know, are novices in many ways. I mean, they're all novices if they come in a first year and so on. But these students are the ones, they're trying to be honest. They're doing their best. They're doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. But for some reason, they're still not quite getting there. So some examples of unintentional plagiarism could be missing citations, for example. Missing quotation marks, okay, so if we think back to the APA definition that we had there, those are some things that are covered there. But also inadequate paraphrasing, and paraphrasing is notoriously difficult for students. There are so many things that we have to think about when we're paraphrasing, and being in our fields for so long, we're already immersed in what we need to know. We don't even really think about those kinds of things anymore. But like I said, we have these novices coming in and we're suddenly expecting them to know automatically how to paraphrase. So, you know, when we're looking at phrasing, they don't just need to understand what the passage means, but they have to understand what it means in context. They have to know how it relates to other pieces of literature. Is the author stating something, or are they taking a stance on something? So there's a lot to do with paraphrasing. Very often we say to students, well, you have to write it in your own words. So they take it and they insert all the synonyms and say, there, that's written in my own words. But of course, it looks right to them, but we know that's not quite right. So, you know, plagiarism is quite complex, and this really is something that we have to keep in mind when we're grading students' work. For anyone who's interested, this actually comes from our Writing Center website. So if you need anything, you can go to our website and have a look. And if you're looking for any additional information too, we can always add to that. All right. So am I going too fast here? No, that's good. Okay. All right, so as we see here from McGowan, McGowan says students are unknowingly, unintentionally committing plagiarism acts for various reasons. And there are many, many other reasons too, besides who the people are. Sometimes they're tired, sometimes they haven't eaten for a few days because they didn't get their next check from work, and so on. So there's all sorts of things going on in people's lives. But the one thing that we have to think about with plagiarism is there that intent? Did they seek to become plagiarists and, you know, do plagiarize their work? And as we said, the students there in the B quadrant are not looking to become dishonest. They're trying their best and trying to do what they think they are supposed to do. And we have to remember, like I said, that they are novices in university, so they just don't know a lot of stuff. They haven't been taught it yet. And so it's really up to us to help them,
be immersed in their fields and in their discourse communities so that they can be, strong members of their discourse community. So I would say, can plagiarism be unintentional? I would say yes. Okay, if we think of all of the things here, who the students are, the fact that they haven't been taught everything they need to know, I think there is plagiarism there. And that's where the room comes for learning, for teaching, learning moments. And those are the kinds of things that we want to keep in mind when we're thinking about our teaching practices. Over to G. Oh, well, no, it's me. You. Oh, yeah, me. Sorry. So what do we want to do then? I mean, we do need to keep in mind that we're in an institution of higher learning, so we have to be prepared to teach them what they need to know. And of course, much of the literature does advocate for explicit and extensive teaching surrounding plagiarism and academic integrity. It takes a long time to acquire these skills. It's not a kind of one and done thing. It has to be taken through all of their courses. And we also have to think that it's not fair to penalize students the same way that you would penalize, if you have first-year students, they're different from fourth-year students. We can't expect the same from those students. So we have to be fair when we're penalizing and only grade them on things that they've actually been taught. Okay? So we really have to be proactive in our teaching, and that's where Deanne is here, over here. Yeah. Time.
10 minutes.
Oh, okay, all right. So as Carolyn has just shown you, actually quadrant, this is where we want it. We're working on these guys. This is the unintentional. Hopefully we'll scoop up some of these C's and D's and move them along. I'd like to provide you with some proactive measures. Hopefully we'll move them on. And hopefully when we give you these tips, you will apprentice these junior scholars. That's our job here, is when they're arriving, whether as a first-year student, international student, and so on. I'm a very visual person, so I like to think about setting the stage in my classroom and using instructional scaffolds. So if I'm going to build a student from the ground up, I'm going to prepare them all along the way. And hopefully, by setting the stage, I think you mentioned setting the stage this morning, and using instructional scaffolds, I will get that student there. Quick little slide here, and a quote to begin. So for effective skills development, students need an environment of inquiry in which it is accepted that students learn by taking risks, by making mistakes, and receiving timely and constructive feedback. This environment of inquiry is where I want to set that stage. Before they walk in, I'm going to be ready. So setting the stage is what every prof will do, every instructor. They'll have that course syllabus there, the bright space, and they've got everything on there, the guidelines for the plagiarism. They'll talk about, of course, some task expectations. Can I use AI in this classroom? Can I not? What's the group work? Permitted or not permitted? All these things are part of it. Absolutely. Don't forget some other things, like maybe you might want to use a declaration statement. I don't know any prof that uses one here on campus, but it might be a possibility, or an honesty statement. That's where you have a slip of paper, I'm going to say paper because I'm old school, the student will promise and yada, 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 that they're going to have a good, adequate, solid academic plagiarized paper. Also pop in some writing resources on your Brightspace page, on your course notes. And I'm not talking about writing resources just by having, here's the writing center, go to the writing center, here's the link, done. A lot more things out there that you can have. Put the style guide there, the APA style guide. It's an amazing addition there. The instructional aids on there are really helpful for students. Put them on libraries, put the links for the citation style guide. How about even the academic phrase bank? Great resources. We introduced that to a lot of our tutors and they're like, wow, where did this come from? So lots of things can set the stage and make that core syllabus, that bright space, even better. Moving into the instructional scaffolds, modifications to assessment design can play a role in preventing plagiarism. Thank you, Dr. Eden. This assessment design, and we can talk about AI, we can talk about all that. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're looking at it in a different perspective. I'm looking at a skill, and I'm not looking at that literature review or that annotated bibliography to say to the student, you're going to write a literature review for me and it's due in 2 weeks. Done. Maybe I need to start modeling that skill, not necessarily the literature review. Maybe I need to provide resources for a particular skill that comes before that literature review. And I'm going to do some activities and then get some feedback. So let me just step along here with a possible explanation, and I'm going to go here. If I'm going to scaffold a skill, I know that the students have to do a literature review. I'm looking at my audience in there and I'm saying, wow, first year students, I don't know if they've got the skill, the understanding of paraphrasing or citations. I'm going to work on the paraphrasing before I start giving them marks and grading them for that literature review. Let's work on paraphrasing and reporting verbs because they partner well together. So I'm going to model the skill. I'm going to provide some resources, use some activities, provide some great formative feedback, whether it's from me, from peers, whatever works. And I'm going to think about some kind of grading system for that, if I use one. If I do the paraphrase, I'm going to provide adequate and inadequate examples, maybe use the Writing Center webpage. I'm going to post some resources, the APA guidelines. I'm going to give them handouts about conciseness, paraphrasing, reporting verbs, hedging, and boosting, right from our website. This is going to help them with the paraphrasing. This is going to help them prepare for that literature review down the road. I'm going to give them the academic checklist, the academic integrity checklist that Memorial Library uses. It should be used more and more and more. It's in their face. The more I remind them about this academic integrity, hopefully I will clear up this unintended. Academic phrase break, love, love, love. I'm going to provide them some practice opportunities, and even through the APA, it does provide some sources there. I'm going to give them some detailed feedback, my own, written. I may even say drop in for some contact hours. I don't like to use the word office hours. I like contact. Office sounds scary because I was called to the office in grade 10, and it's very nice. So I like to use the word contact. And then I'm going to grade accordingly. Maybe I won't even grade. I want them to feel good about this practice in paraphrasing and reporting verbs. But I'm going to grade them when they do that literature review because I've given you that practice. There's my little bit of scaffolding. Watching my time, I'm going quick here. So if I put it all together, maybe I've done a little citation practice, prep, little grade maybe none, a little practice this because I want that literature review done well. And because they have now been made aware of what good paraphrasing is, they have all the resources, they have everything in their back pocket, I might get a darn good literature review. It takes time though. And that's the challenge, instructors. So I can certainly move all the way up the ladder, scaffold my way up to whatever final product. That could be that research paper. But each time I might add a little skill. I might do some extra foundation. Ending here with the last bit of quotation here, reframing the conversation from punitive measures. You failed, you plagiarized, to giving students support and lead to student success. And that's what we have. Let's go resources. Quick. This is like a snippy.
All right, so for any of you who are teaching and are looking for some extra resources, you can always come to the Writing Center or you can look at our website. We do have faculty and instructor resources there. So we do have handouts, we have workshops. We also have skill presentations where we can come to the classroom and talk to the students. And of course, we also have our peer tutor support too.
And some of the resources that Nadine was talking about, the APA instructional aids, they have fantastic things on their website if APA is something that you use in your field. This is the academic integrity checklist that Nadine was speaking about. This is the kind of thing that you could get them to slap onto the front of each of their assignments that they're passing in. The great thing about it is it's almost, you know, it's reminders to them. Oh, did I do this? Did I do that? Okay. This is the academic phrase bank that Nadine was speaking about. Absolutely fantastic. I wish this existed when I was doing my graduate degree. And the last one is some interactive activities that we have on our Writing Center website as well. So if you want to have students do any of those for any kinds of practice, you can do that as well. So I think that's it. I guess we have maybe some time for the discussion.
A few minutes. Thank you so much.
And we have a handout here of some of the further reading, things that we used, and some suggested resources here for you. And we have a handout for faculty instructor support and the teaching assistant support, and our bookmark with the QR code leading right to straight to us. So Sana, you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. We have a few minutes. It's 4:30. We can stay as long as we want. Technically, we're finished, but we can stay for some Q&A. Absolutely. So if you have some questions, please.
So I'm teaching information system. It's not about writing, but I found like many students feel comfortable using AI without citation, even like they got 0, but like they hope for some grade out of it, like they try hard. But there are some cases that I feel that they don't know what is citation. And they don't know what we have in-text citation and reference. So they put the reference, like when I push hard, okay, you should reference. I have a reference list. Like it's like, no, it's not enough. You should like cite inside the text. So they don't know. At least they will try not to be like for the punishment side of it. They will do something. So I feel like they don't know some of the basic things.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possible that you do like one session? I don't know like what are the resources, but like I actually was thinking that I should teach them, but like I feel that like teaching this skill and using it a third person, like I know how to do it, but maybe I'm not a good teacher in some of the topics that is like basic topic. Like I know like how to do it, search it, I know to check where, but like I feel like maybe someone who can teach that from the basics and be like, you know, like know that person and they can ask in future, like if they wanted to. So do you have like something like that like you can come to the class for, I don't know, 20 minutes, something, just give them like, these are the resources. This is like like, this is the way that you should cite, what is cited. It's just very basic, but something that is like understandable for undergrad, maybe their third or second year of their education.
Yeah, reach out to us. We can certainly look into
Okay.
to helping you with that. Yeah, and of course, you know, we do always have the Writing Center tutors as well who can help with that.
They don't even read their course syllabus, so like I don't think that. So like I even like I put like a lot of sources. It's already there. Okay, this is the API. It is like library. You can use this system to like cite, but they only use like the thing that Google offers or ChatGPT offers. So they don't read it. So like, but if like someone in the class wants to learn and like have that opportunity to see, okay, this is the example, that would be some sort of like relief for me. So I won't feel that they are honest and they cheat. That I will know that they are dishonest. And
I've gone into the classes just to talk about what is in-text citation. Yeah, so we can have gone in that 15 minutes and talked about it.
Okay.
Hopefully they've heard me, but then the prof will say what you were told. Nadine came in.
Yeah, it's been on it.
Covered herself in, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, she provided with all the links and she provided with some practice opportunities. Yeah, that's right. And I think sometimes it is nice to have someone different in front of them. So it's not just you telling them what they need to do. It's almost like, you know, well, my mom told me, but I don't want to listen to her. You know, someone else, babysitter comes in and says something, they'll listen to the babysitter. So it's almost like that in a way, right? You know,
I think it's another skill set as well. So like if they ask me, I was like, okay, this is the link, these are the example, and I feel it works for them. But I found that like it's not the best way, you know, with someone who's given us a class.
Yeah. And I mean, we always recommend, the instructor must be there. So that would be a learning opportunity for you too, to see how you think that would work for your students. And you may feel more competent that way, to be able to do it for your future classes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I was wondering, when I work with students, and not academic integrity, but in general about proper writing skills, citing, referencing, they assume they get all their information from the QE2. So do you guys and the QE2, are you kind of like one entity when it comes to this endeavor, or do you guys do things in very different ways?
We do things separately, but we're always recommending each other back and forth, right? So if there's something that we feel we really can't help a student with, I mean, this past year or so, we've had some really interesting citation styles coming our way that we hadn't even heard of before. So we didn't feel confident to help the students with those. So we recommended that they go over to the library, or if they're looking for further research to support some of their arguments or something, then we recommend they go over to the library as well, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dean and Carolyn.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.